Welcome to the Deep Dive. Now, usually we're all about earnings calls here, right? But today, we're going to hit pause on the spreadsheets for a bit.
A little different.
And dive into some breaking news.
Big news.
That's got the tech world, well, buzzing, I guess you could say.
Definitely buzzing.
Intel's CEO, Pat Gelsinger, is out.
Wow.
Pushed out after just a few years leading the
chip giant.
Yeah, the chip giant.
I mean, what's so fascinating here is this isn't like your typical CEO shuffle, right? This is Gelsinger.
It's not like musical chairs.
No. This was supposed to be Intel's savior.
Right.
The guy to bring back the glory days.
Like a comeback kid.
He had this incredible history, right? Started working there as a teenager.
I know, it's wild.
Designed the 486 processor, became their first CTO. He was Intel through and through.
Like literally an Intel lifer.
Yeah.
And when he came back in 2021...
Yeah, after leading VMware.
Yeah, VMware. It felt like,
the prodigal son returning.
The prodigal son returning. Everyone's expecting miracles.
Of course, right. Especially with Intel struggling.
Oh, yeah.
To keep up with companies like TSMC in manufacturing.
Huge pressure.
Exactly. And he set some pretty ambitious goals, regaining that manufacturing lead, becoming a major player in the foundry business.
Okay, hold on. Foundry business. Break that down for me.
Okay, so foundry business basically means making chips for other companies.
Got it.
Not just for themselves.
Okay.
And competing head-on with Nvidia in the AI chip market. I mean, he even took a few public swipes at Apple for ditching Intel's chips in their Macs.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure. So we have this industry legend.
Right. Stepping back into the ring.
Aims to take back the crown. But then things start to, I don't know.
Unravel.
Yeah. Intel stock takes a hit. They announce layoffs.
Tough times.
And the whole foundry strategy.
It just doesn't seem to be paying off.
Not as quickly as everyone hoped.
Right.
So what went wrong?
Well, you have to remember the context, right? He walked into a perfect storm. The PC market, which was Intel's bread and butter, started to shrink.
Oh, makes sense.
Nvidia was just crushing it in AI.
Oh, yeah.
Especially for data centers, which is a huge market.
Huge, yeah.
And then you've got Apple, which not only ditched Intel, but also showed everyone that designing your own chips that could give you a real edge.
Yeah. It's like they're setting a trend, almost.
Yeah, exactly.
So in the middle of all this, Gelsinger goes on a spending spree, right? Billions of dollars poured into these new factories, Arizona and Ohio. Even snagged billions more in government subsidies.
Yeah, through the CHIPS Act?
CHIPS Act, all about boosting domestic chip production. Bold move, but was it the right one?
That's the billion-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
On one hand, he secured a ton of funding.
Oh, yeah.
Set the stage for Intel to potentially become a major force again in chip manufacturing.
I mean, that was the goal?
Right. But on the other hand, the revenue wasn't there to justify that level of spending.
That makes sense.
And when those big-name foundry customers he was hoping for, they didn't show up.
Didn't materialize.
And the numbers he needed created this huge tension with the board.
So was this spending spree Gelsinger's fatal flaw? Was he too focused on the long game? Too idealistic in his vision for Intel's future?
It's hard to say for sure.
Yeah.
There's no doubt he was a visionary leader.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe he underestimated the challenges, or maybe the execution wasn't quite there. The timing is also interesting, right?
Yeah, that's true.
He gets this huge funding boost from the government.
Right.
And then, boom, he's out.
Yeah, it's like, what happened?
Makes you wonder if there's more to the story.
There's got to be more to the story than we know. Yeah, it definitely feels like some missing pieces to this puzzle. But for our listeners who are trying to make sense of all this, what are the key takeaways here? What does Gelsinger's exit actually mean for Intel?
I think the biggest takeaway is that Intel is at a crossroads. They've poured a ton of money into this, right, to become a major player in the foundry business.
Right.
But it's still unclear if that bet will pay off.
That's a big gamble.
Yeah, I mean, they're facing intense competition.
Oh, for sure.
Companies like TSMC, Samsung, they're already established.
They're already ahead.
In that space.
Yeah. And let's not forget about Nvidia.
Oh, how could we?
Right. Which has become like...
the 800-pound gorilla?
800-pound gorilla in the AI chip market.
Right.
Intel has to figure out how to compete there.
Yeah, I mean...
or they risk becoming irrelevant.
Yeah, basically.
In one of the fastest growing segments of the industry.
Absolutely.
So it's a big question mark for them.
Yeah, and then there's the question of leadership.
Right.
Right, with Gelsinger out, who's going to step in?
Right. Who's going to steer the ship?
Who's going to steer the ship? Will they stick with his vision?
Or are they going to change everything?
Or will they chart a new course? I mean, these are all questions.
Huge questions.
That investors and analysts are grappling with right now.
Yeah, I bet they are.
It's a lot to unpack.
It's a lot.
But you know what? This is exactly why we do this deep dive.
I was going to say, this is what we do.
Our listeners rely on us.
This is the deep dive, baby.
To cut through the noise, right? And make sense of these big shifts in the tech world. So let's look at Intel's immediate future.
Okay, immediate future. What are we looking at?
They've got 2 interim co-CEOs in place.
Oh, that's interesting. Co-CEOs?
Yeah, okay. David Zinsner, their CFO.
Right.
And Michelle Johnston-Holthouse, who was heading their PC business.
Okay.
So that structure is interesting in itself, right?
Co-CEOs. It suggests that maybe they're not sure what to do.
They're still figuring things out.
Still figuring things out.
They've said they're committed to separating chip design from manufacturing.
Okay, hold on. Back up.
Yeah.
Separating chip design from manufacturing.
Yeah.
Explain that like I'm 5. Because I know a lot of our listeners, they're not chip experts.
Okay, sure.
Explain it to me like I'm 5 years old.
Okay, so think of it like building a house, okay?
Okay.
You've got the architects who design the house.
Yeah.
And then you've got the construction crew who actually build it.
Right.
Right. So traditionally, Intel has been like a company that does both.
Okay.
They design the chips and they manufacture them.
Got it.
In their own factories.
So they're like a one-stop shop.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Gelsinger's big idea was to become like the construction crew for other companies who design their own chips.
I see.
So companies like Apple.
Yeah, they design their own chips, but they don't have the factories.
They don't necessarily have those massive, expensive factories to build them.
So they need someone to build it for them.
Exactly. That's where the foundry comes in.
Okay.
It's a company that specializes in manufacturing chips for other companies.
Got it. So Intel is trying to be both.
Yeah.
The architect.
And the construction crew.
And the construction crew.
Yeah.
While also trying to convince other architects to let them handle the construction.
It's complicated.
That sounds complicated.
It is complicated, and it's a huge gamble.
Oh, yeah.
Because he spent billions building those new factories, right? And they need to be running at full capacity to be profitable.
Oh, yeah. You got to keep those factories humming.
Yeah, but attracting enough clients
to
fill those factories.
That's got to be tough.
That's a major challenge, especially when you've got companies like TSMC, which is already the dominant player in the foundry space.
They're like the top dog?
Yeah, the top dog.
So what should our listeners be watching for here?
Yeah.
What are the key indicators that Intel's foundry strategy is actually working?
Okay, so keep an eye on their client list.
Okay.
Landing big names like Amazon and Microsoft.
Right.
Good start, but they need more.
They need more.
Watch their capacity utilization rates.
Capacity utilization rates? What's that?
Basically, how much of their factory space is actually being used to produce chips.
Got it. And of course.
And pay attention to their margins.
Profitability.
If they can't make a profit on this business, it's going to be tough to justify those massive investments.
So a lot of money.
Yeah.
So client wins, capacity, and profitability.
Those are the things to track.
Those are the metrics to track. But let's be honest.
All right.
We're all a little addicted to the drama here.
A little bit, yeah.
What's the juiciest storyline?
Okay, so for me...
You're following this whole Intel saga.
It's the battle for AI dominance.
Oh, yeah.
Nvidia is so far ahead right now. It's almost unbelievable.
They're killing it.
They've managed to position themselves as the go-to provider for AI chips.
Especially for those data centers.
Especially for data centers, which are basically like the engine rooms of the internet.
That's a good way to put it. Engine rooms of the internet. And Intel...
They're playing catch-up.
Yeah.
But it's a steep climb.
It's a steep climb. And this is where it gets really interesting for our listeners.
Especially those who like to...
Especially those who like to...
dabble in the market.
Dabble in the market. Play the market.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit. Remember, folks...
Disclaimer.
This is not financial advice.
Of course, right.
But given all this drama, what's a completely outrageous, but maybe just crazy enough to work trade idea?
Okay, hear me out.
All right, I'm listening.
Intel spinning off their factories into a separate publicly traded company.
Whoa, hold on. A whole separate chip-making entity?
Yeah.
That's bold.
Bold, I know.
Why would they even consider that?
Because it might be the only way to unlock the value of those massive investments.
You're talking about the investments Gelsinger made?
The ones Gelsinger made.
Okay.
Right. Imagine a company solely focused on cutting-edge chip production with multiple clients, not just Intel.
I see.
They could really lean into being the construction crew for the chip world.
So they'd be saying, hey, world.
Yeah.
We may not be the best at designing chips anymore.
Right.
But we can build them better than anyone.
Exactly.
It's like a construction company going public.
Yeah.
With all those shiny new factories as their assets.
Exactly.
That's a gamble.
It's a gamble.
But
a high stakes one.
High stakes, high reward.
Yeah. Big potential payoff.
Big potential payoff. It could attract investors.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Looking for a pure play.
In the foundry space.
In the foundry space, especially with the government.
Right.
So keen on boosting domestic chip production.
It's a hot space.
So sell Intel stock.
Yeah.
Buy the Intel factory's IPO.
Maybe.
Sounds risky.
Definitely risky.
But potentially lucrative.
Potentially, yeah.
If it takes off.
If it takes off.
Big if.
Big if.
But hey, we're just
spitballing here.
Spitballing.
Yeah.
And to be crystal clear.
Yes.
This is not financial advice.
Not at all.
Just food for thought for those who like to play the what-if game in the market.
Indeed.
The future of Intel is far from certain.
Many paths they could take.
Many paths.
And this is just one possibility.
One possibility. But it's a fascinating one for sure.
It is.
It speaks to the challenges and opportunities facing Intel.
Absolutely.
As they try to navigate this rapidly evolving tech landscape.
Absolutely. The chip industry is more crucial than ever.
Oh, for sure.
And Intel's next move could have ripple effects across the entire tech world.
So we've explored this,
This bold trade idea.
This bold trade idea. But zooming out a bit.
Yeah.
What are the broader implications of Gelsinger's exit?
Right.
What does this tell us about the state of the tech industry as a whole?
I think it's a stark reminder that even tech giants aren't immune to disruption.
Yeah, they're not invincible.
The industry is constantly evolving.
Always changing.
And companies that fail to adapt risk being left behind.
It's like survival of the fittest almost.
Yeah. I mean, look what happened to companies like Nokia and BlackBerry.
Oh, yeah.
They were once dominant players.
Giant.
They missed key trends.
Yeah.
And they paid the price.
Paid the price. Intel doesn't want to be the next cautionary tale.
Well, they don't want to be that.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Right. Gelsinger tried to shake things up, made some bold bets.
But sure.
But it seems like it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was just too much too fast.
Maybe. It's hard to say.
Hard to say.
He faced a perfect storm of challenges.
He did.
The rise of Nvidia in AI, Apple's switch to its own chips.
Yeah.
Delays in Intel's manufacturing processes, and a downturn in the PC market.
It was a lot.
It would have been a tough job for anyone.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah.
So true. But this isn't just about Intel, right?
No.
It highlights the intense competition.
Oh, yeah.
In the semiconductor industry.
Absolutely.
And the critical role these tiny chips play in our
increasingly digital world.
Our world, right. It's crazy how much we rely on them.
Precisely. These chips are the building blocks of everything.
Everything.
Our phones, laptops, cars, the internet itself.
And as we move towards, a more AI-driven world, the importance of chip technology is only going to increase.
Oh, only going to increase.
Right. And with the U.S. government pouring billions into domestic chip production.
Yeah.
There's geopolitical implications as well.
Absolutely.
It's not just about business anymore.
It's about national security and global competitiveness.
Wow.
The stakes are high.
The stakes are incredibly high.
Incredibly high.
So for our listeners out there, whether you're a tech enthusiast, an investor, or just someone who uses technology every day, this Intel saga is a story worth following closely.
Indeed, I think the future of Intel.
And perhaps the entire tech landscape.
The entire tech landscape hangs in the balance.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah, we have.
Gelsinger's ambitious plans, the challenges he faced, that wild spin-off idea.
Oh, yeah, that was a fun one.
It was a fun one.
Yeah.
And the broader implications for the tech world, it's been a wild ride.
It has been.
Really has. And I think the key takeaway for our listeners is that the chip industry is in a period of rapid transformation.
Constant transformation.
It's impacting every aspect of our lives.
Whether we realize it or not.
Whether we realize it or not. It's like chips are the new oil, wouldn't you say?
That's a great analogy.
Right.
They're the essential ingredient for so much of what we do, from the devices we use to the way businesses operate, the future of AI.
Yeah.
It all comes back to these tiny pieces of silicon.
And with governments around the world recognizing their strategic importance.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the competition is only going to intensify.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this special episode of Talk Tickers, what's the one thing you'd leave our listeners with? What should they be watching for in the coming months?
Keep an eye on who Intel picks as their permanent CEO.
Okay, new CEO.
That's going to be a huge signal about the direction they're heading.
Right.
Will they bring in someone who's going to double down on the foundry strategy?
Right.
Or will they go in a completely different direction?
Completely different. Yeah. Big decision.
And on a broader level, pay attention to the overall chip landscape.
Right.
This battle between Intel, TSMC, Nvidia, Samsung.
It's like a battle royale.
It is. It's going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out.
It's a good time to be watching the chip industry.
Absolutely.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well, it's a dynamic industry full of innovation and disruption.
Yeah.
And we'll be here on Talk Tickers to break it all down for you, as always.
For sure.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
My pleasure.
All right, we'll be back soon with more analysis and insights.
Sounds good.
Until next time, happy listening.
Take care.
Right. And that co-CEO structure is interesting.
Oh, yeah.
In itself, right? It kind of suggests that the board is still
figuring things out.
Yeah. They've said they're committed to separating chip design from manufacturing.
Right. Which was a core part of Gelsinger's foundry strategy.
But with Holthaus now permanently leading Intel products, which includes their AI and data center divisions, there could be a shift in focus.
Yeah, potentially.
Hold on. Back up for a second.
Okay.
Separating chip design from manufacturing.
Yeah.
Explain that like I'm 5.
All right.
Because I know a lot of our listeners might not be familiar with how this whole industry works.
Okay, sure. So think of it like building a house.
Okay.
You've got the architects who design the house.
Right.
And then you've got the construction crew who actually build it.
Okay.
Traditionally, Intel has been like a company that does both.
Okay.
They design the chips and they manufacture them in their own factories.
Got it.
So Gelsinger's big idea was to become the construction crew for other companies who design their own chips.
I see. So companies like Apple, they design their own chips, but they don't necessarily have the massive, expensive factories needed to build them.
Right. So that's where the foundry comes in.
Okay.
It's basically a company that specializes in manufacturing chips for other companies.
So Intel's trying to be both the architect and the construction crew, while also trying to convince other architects to let them handle the construction.
Yeah.
That sounds, I don't know.
Complicated.
It
is. It's a huge gamble. Gelsinger spent billions building those new factories.
Right.
And they need to be running at full capacity to be profitable.
You got to keep those factories humming.
Yeah, but attracting enough clients to fill those factories is a major challenge, especially when you've got companies like TSMC.
Right. They're already like the big dog in this space.
Exactly.
So what should our listeners be watching for? What are the key indicators that Intel's foundry strategy is actually working?
So keep an eye on their client list.
Client list, okay.
Landing big names like Amazon and Microsoft was a good start.
Yeah.
But they need more.
They need more big names.
Yeah. Watch their capacity utilization rates.
Capacity utilization rates. Break that down for me one more time.
Sure. Basically, how much of their factory space is actually being used to produce chips?
Okay, so how much are those factories actually running?
Exactly.
And, of course, profitability.
Right. Pay attention to their margins. If they can't make a profit on this foundry business, it's going to be tough to justify those massive investments.
It's a lot of money on the line.
It is.
So client wins, capacity, and profitability. Those are the metrics to track.
Exactly.
But let's be honest. We're all a little addicted to the drama here.
A little bit, yeah.
What's the juiciest storyline you're following in this whole Intel saga?
Okay, for me, it's the battle for AI dominance.
Oh, yeah.
Nvidia is so far ahead right now, it's almost unbelievable.
They're really dominating.
They've managed to position themselves as the go-to provider for AI chips.
Especially for data centers.
Especially for data centers, which are basically like the engine rooms of the internet.
Yeah, it's a good analogy.
Right.
And Intel's playing catch-up.
They are, but it's a steep climb.
It's a steep climb.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets really interesting for our listeners, especially those who like to, dabble in the stock market.
Yeah.
Remember, folks, This is not financial advice.
This is not financial advice.
But given all this drama, what's a completely outrageous, but maybe just crazy enough to work trade idea?
Okay, hear me out. What if Intel spun off their factories into a separate, publicly traded company?
Whoa, a whole separate chip-making entity.
Yeah.
That's bold. Why would they even consider that?
Because it might be the only way to unlock the value of those massive investments Gelsinger made.
Interesting.
Imagine a company solely focused on cutting-edge chip production with multiple clients, not just Intel.
So they'd be saying, hey, world, we may not be the best at designing chips anymore, but we can build them better than anyone.
Exactly.
It's like a construction company going public with all those shiny new factories as their assets.
Exactly. It's a gamble, but a high-stakes one with potential for a big payoff.
High risk, high reward.
Exactly. It could attract investors looking for a pure play in the foundry space, especially with the government so keen on boosting domestic chip production.
So sell Intel stock. Buy the Intel factories IPO.
Maybe.
Sounds risky.
Definitely risky.
But potentially lucrative if it takes off.
It could be. But of course, this is all hypothetical.
Right, not financial advice.
Not at all.
Just food for thought for those who like to play the what-if game in the market.
Exactly.
The future of Intel is far from certain.
Many paths they could take.
Many paths.
And this spin-off idea is just one possibility.
But it's a fascinating one, for sure.
It is.
It speaks to the challenges and opportunities facing Intel as they try to navigate this rapidly evolving tech landscape.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've explored this bold trade idea, but zooming out a bit, what are the broader implications of Gelsinger's exit? What does this tell us about the state of the tech industry as a whole?
I think it's a stark reminder that even tech giants aren't immune to disruption.
It's like they're not invincible.
Right. The industry is constantly evolving.
Yeah, it never stops.
And companies that fail to adapt, they risk being left behind.
It's like survival of the fittest out there.
Yeah, I mean, look at what happened to companies like Nokia and BlackBerry.
Right.
They were once dominant players, but they missed key trends.
They didn't adapt.
And they paid the price.
Paid the price. Intel doesn't want to be the next cautionary tale, that's for sure.
And I don't think anybody wants to be that.
Gelsinger tried to shake things up, made some bold bets, but it seems like it wasn't enough. Or maybe it was just too much too fast.
Maybe. It's hard to say for sure.
It's hard to say. I mean, he faced a perfect storm of challenges. The rise of Nvidia in AI, Apple switching to its own chips, delays in Intel's manufacturing process, and a downturn in the PC market. That's a lot.
It was a lot. It would have been a tough job for anyone.
It's true, but this isn't just about Intel, right?
No, it's bigger than that.
It highlights the intense competition in the semiconductor industry and the critical role these tiny chips play in our increasingly digital world. It's amazing how much we rely on these little chips for everything.
It really is. These chips are the building blocks of everything. Our phones, our laptops, our cars, the internet itself. And as we move towards a more AI-driven world, the importance of chip technology is only going to increase.
And with the U.S. government pouring billions into domestic chip production, there are geopolitical implications as well.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's not just about business anymore. It's about national security and global competitiveness.
The stakes are high.
The stakes are incredibly high.
So for our listeners out there, whether you're a tech enthusiast, an investor, or just someone who uses technology every day, this Intel saga is a story worth following closely.
Oh, absolutely. The future of Intel.
The future of Intel.
And maybe even the whole tech landscape. It's all hanging in the balance right now.
Well said. And you know, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
Gelsinger's ambitious plans, the challenges he faced.
Yeah.
That wild spin-off idea.
Oh, yeah. That was a fun one.
Which, you know, who knows? Maybe.
Maybe someday.
Maybe someday. And of course, the broader implications for the tech world. It's been a wild ride.
It really has. And I think the key takeaway here for our listeners is that the chip industry, I mean, it's in a period of just rapid transformation.
Constant change.
And it's impacting, well, every aspect of our lives.
Whether we realize it or not.
Whether we realize it or not. It's like chips are the new oil, wouldn't you say?
That's a great analogy. It really is.
They're the essential ingredient for so much of what we do.
I mean, everything.
From the devices we use to the way businesses operate to the future of AI.
All of it.
It all comes back to those tiny pieces of silicon.
Yeah. And with governments around the world, I mean, they're recognizing their strategic importance now.
Oh, absolutely.
The competition is only going to intensify.
It's going to be fierce.
So as we wrap up this special episode of Talk Tickers, what's the one thing you would leave our listeners with? What should they be watching for in the coming months?
Keep an eye on who Intel picks as their new CEO.
New CEO, yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge signal about, well, their direction.
Where they're headed.
Yeah, are they going to bring in someone who's going to, like, double down on that foundry strategy?
All those billions in factories.
Exactly. Or are they going to go in a completely different direction?
Big questions.
Big questions. And on a broader level, I'd say just pay attention to the whole chip landscape.
The whole landscape.
This battle between Intel, TSMC, Nvidia, Samsung, it's going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out.
It's a good time to be watching the chip industry, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Well said. It's a dynamic industry full of innovation and disruption. And we'll be here on Talk Tickers to break it all down for you, as always.
Always.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
It's been my pleasure.
All right, we'll be back soon with more analysis and insights. Until then, happy listening.
Take care, everyone.